Jurong Island in Singapore is a critical nerve center for global energy production. Over several decades, ExxonMobil built a massive $30 billion legacy investment here. But today, ExxonMobil is aggressively shrinking its footprint on the island, laying off up to 15% of its highly specialized local workforce. They are also selling off their entire regional network of Esso retail gas stations, handing over their consumer-facing infrastructure to an Indonesian competitor. And most drastically, they announced the permanent shutdown of a massive 2002 steam cracker, the core infrastructure producing the chemical building blocks of plastic. Yet, right next to these abandoned assets, Exxon is simultaneously cutting the ribbon on a brand new multi-billion-dollar resid upgrade facility. To understand why a legacy corporation would dismantle its own vital hub while pouring billions into new technology right next door, we have to look at the global supply chain. Two external forces have squeezed the market, forcing an evolution. Over the last 5 years, Beijing injected an estimated $59 billion of state subsidies directly into its petrochemical sector. This chart maps global capacity. China used state capital to inflate its ethylene production by 60%, while the rest of the world remained stagnant. The result? 218 million tons of excess capacity. Markets flooded with cheap plastics, crashing global operating margins below profitability thresholds. Back in Singapore, Exxon's aging 2002 steam cracker simply cannot match the economics of these state-subsidized Chinese superplants. In this landscape, producing high-volume, low-margin commodity plastics is no longer a viable path for aging Western infrastructure. At the same time, the energy sector faced an entirely different threat. The 2026 conflict between the U.S. and Iran effectively closed the Strait of Hormuz to commercial shipping. Governments can tap into strategic reserves to cushion the blow to raw crude oil, but the market for refined products, finished fuels like diesel and jet fuel, has absolutely zero emergency buffer. This map illustrates the physical disruption in the region. With the primary flow of feedstock severed at the strait, Asian refineries were physically starved. Major hubs in Singapore slashed their output by half or more. This triggers an immediate downstream crisis. Nations heavily dependent on those Asian refining hubs, like Australia, are now facing severe supply shortages and skyrocketing costs for essentials like jet fuel and diesel. Exxon's traditional Singapore operation is trapped in a vice, priced out of the bulk plastics market by China and starved out of the refined fuel business by a geopolitical blockade. This explains the specific output of that brand new resid upgrade facility. Exxon is not abandoning Jurong Island. They are abandoning low-margin commodities. Instead, they are producing items like EHC 340 Max. This is a highly specialized, hyper-efficient lubricant base stock derived entirely from heavy crude residues. It is a high-margin, highly complex product. More importantly, it is something the massive, subsidized Chinese plants are not currently equipped to manufacture at scale. For a modern energy corporation to survive, it must stop chasing sheer volume and pivot to hyper-specialized, irreplaceable technological products. For the end consumer, this market fracture offers a deceptive short-term benefit. Right now, there is an abundance of incredibly cheap plastic goods and packaging driven directly by that Chinese oversupply. But the long-term penalty is severe. We are facing extreme price surges and highly fragile supply chains for essentials like transportation diesel, jet fuel, and agricultural fertilizers. This reflects a broader shift away from the do-everything mega-refinery model that defined the previous century. The 2026 energy landscape is unforgiving. Faced with state-sponsored overcapacity and militarized shipping lanes, legacy energy giants must ruthlessly adapt their past or risk being squeezed out of the market.